Okay, good morning. We are covering nationalism in China. Today, let's just rock into it. We've been covering nationalism around the world. We have talked about nationalism in India, in Turkey, Saudi Arabia. Well, I guess we haven't really talked about Saudi India, Turkey, Israel, Africa, all sorts of places. We're talking about China today. China, again, we're getting into a period of time where it really does impact, us today. And how China is structured today. So let's talk about China in the early 1900s, before World War I. In the early 1900s, the nationalists in China were pushing to modernize. And so we get this kind of debate, or I guess debate, but like some people want to modernize in China, and others want to really stick with traditional Chinese like isolationism, keeping away from foreign influence. However, a group of nationalists, people proud of China, were really pushing China to modernize and to basically become a modern country that could play on the world stage, like it could have power on the world stage. So we have in 1912, we have the Chinese Nationalist Party come on the scene. And we can imagine China before this as a country that has an emperor, that has emperors and warlords, and just something that you would really think of not really as a modern state today, unlike China today, which you would certainly consider to be one of the a world power. China would not have been like that in the early 1900s. You would have thought of it, again, yes, as areas run by warlords, areas, an emperor in charge of the country. And so the Chinese Nationalist Party comes on the scene and overthrows the emperor with the help of one of their leaders, Sun Yat-sen. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce that. He had spent many years in the United States, and so we see this kind of trend of people studying in the West and copying it and then bringing it to other countries and continue here in China. Yat-sen was not powerful enough to keep the nation together, and so China fell into the hands of warlords. China's a big country, guys. Not easy to govern the whole of China, okay? Lots of mountains, lots of rivers, lots of areas, lots of people. Very difficult to control that whole territory. So now we get to World War I. And the China joined the Allied side in World War I, thinking that it would get Germany's former colonies in Asia. However, the Treaty of Versailles gave these territories to Japan. Sad trombone. So no one's happy about that. It's like, well, why did we do that? So what, you just lied? Just lied to us? And Europe's going, it's complicated. Yeah, but it seems like you really implied when you wanted our troops and stuff that you would, give us something for that. So, why did we do that? A lot of people died. So, we get the news comes back, and we have the May 4th movement. And this is a picture of the protests, the May 4th movement. All right, I was just closing down some windows to help with my lag fest that I have going on. So we have the May 4th movement. Many Chinese citizens, including students, gathered in Beijing to protest. It showed at the time how committed people were to creating a strong nation in China, a strong nationalist nation. Many young people were frustrated with the West in light of the Treaty of Versailles and turned to Soviet style communism. And this is important because communism is still obviously a pretty big deal in China even today. So we have people that are disillusioned after the Treaty of Versailles with these Western powers that are saying, oh, democracy's great, oh, capitalism's great. Well, yeah, that sounds pretty nice in theory, but to the Chinese, they're seeing these countries in this way of life as kind of really not exactly helped them, okay? And so a lot of these people kind of turn to this Lenin-style communism, and many young students and intellectuals are turning to that. And so we have a strong communist movement in China, which leads to the Chinese Communist Party. CCP, not College Credit Plus, okay? The Chinese Communist Party. It was formed in 1920 with Mao Zedong, important name, as one of its leaders. And so we get this rumble in the jungle going on between the nationalists and the communists. Sun Yat-sen, again, man, I wonder if I'm going to look this up after the video, died in 1925, and Chiang Kai-shek, another famous name, rose to power in the Nationalist Party. He turned them against the CCP. Chiang Kai-shek became president of basically this nationalist version of China, the Nationalist Republic of China, in 1928, but the government wasn't so hot. It was corrupt and led many peasants side with the communists. All right, in fact, oh, gross. In fact, Mao encouraged peasants to join the communists by dividing any land won amongst the farmers. He also gave them food and what? And reading lessons. So basically, Mao is getting people on board with the communists by giving them stuff and like incorporating them, giving up, dividing up land, feeding them, giving them lessons to learn how to read and be literate. And so he's getting people on board with the Chinese Communist Party. By the 1930s, we really have two camps. All right, we've got the nationalists and the communists. And so what happens when we have two camps that want to control a whole country? They fought a civil war. They fought a civil war. They fought a civil war. Okay. I had to pause because this was messed up. I forgot this part in the guide notes. And this is important. Alright. Long March. Long March. So there's a civil war going on. Nationalists and communists are fighting and for control of China. And the nationalists think they have the communists beat and cornered. And Mao Zedong leads the communists on what is later called the Long March. They were cornered, they were almost defeated, but they escaped by marching legit, seriously think about this, 6,000 miles over the course, over 18 mountain ranges, over 370 days. Okay, so this is a very long march. They're marching for a year, fleeing for their lives. So Japan sees this. Japan goes, oh, you guys are fighting each other? Well, why don't we just take Manchuria? So let's show these diagrams real quick. Here is 1934. And then here, I don't actually know what that is about. Okay. Here it just shows the path of this long march of how far they walked. And again, that's really far. I mean, that's really far. And so what ends up happening is during this time, the Japanese go, we're going to invade Manchuria. And so that forced a pause in the Civil War. The nationalists and communists temporarily paused to fight the Japanese, but the war will resume after World War II. So we have a basically they unite. Right, is this supposed to be a truce? A pause is fine. This forces a truce, and so they end up going and fighting the Japanese, saying, "Get on out of here, Japanese." So that is China, and that is nationalism in China. We just need to really understand that there's this dynamic between the nationalists and the kind of camp of Chiang Kai-shek, and the communists kind of in the camp of Mao Zedong, and they fight each other. Japan sees it as an opportunity to invade, and that's China.